Okay. Yeah. So I'm saying here about the film. Really, this would help you a lot to understand the text, to understand the many sort of small details about the society, the Russian society at that time, the problems that the novel really is addressing. The novel really is addressing so many questions, so many heavy questions, important questions, mainly social, really social questions, which I will hopefully show you throughout this novel when we study it. I will give this novel 3 weeks. So I will give as much as I can from this novel, because to me, I think this is a great text for people to understand and to read and to analyze and to evaluate, because really it's still valid. The questions that I think the questions that were really, if you like, were raised by Dostoevsky are really universal, and they are still valid today in any society, in every single society. These questions are valid. So that's why I think, this to me, this is a great example of a world text. Now, the first and I think the most important question I want you to keep in mind, that this is a novel about psychology. It's a psychoanalytical novel. It's psychoanalysis, purely psychoanalysis. So this is really a heavy text about this effect of psychoanalysis, how people suffer this question of, everything to do with your psyche, and everything you really have here concerning your attitudes towards, everything about the ills and problems, and the hidden disasters about our own psychological really complexity, how much we are really, if you like, complicated people, the minds, the human mind, here this deep, if you like, layers and layers of our, if you like, psyche and mind, how much really this is, if you like, clear or can be reflected through our behavior, every day's behavior. And really the title, even when you look at the title, Crime and Punishment. Now I'm saying this is psychology and this is psychological, right? And I say this is psychoanalytical text. Yes, absolutely. Because it's a deep psychoanalytical process of a criminal who commits a crime by killing a woman and her sister, killing 2 women, killing 2 people for no really valid reason. And we shall see later, no real valid reason, And we say here the whole process of committing a crime, and the idea of the punishment. And notice the title, Crime and Punishment. Now, the whole idea, again, I will show you so many facets, so many sides of this, and I will explore these facets with you here, really, in class, in my lectures. Now, please, as I say, in your free time, please watch the film, if you like, as many times as you like, because I really think it's a huge success, and it will give you a real thing about the whole novel. Now, Dostoevsky, in many ways, I think he was writing maybe, if you really think about it, maybe he was writing maybe before Freud. And maybe we can say even that Freud, has taken a lot. I don't know. I mean, this is really my hunch and my feeling that Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis and the father of psychology, if you like, modern psychology, if you like. Really, he has taken, I'm sure Freud has borrowed huge things from Dostoevsky. Dostoevsky really gave us, all the elements of psychoanalysis and the dreams and the question of dreaming and the interpretations of dreams and all this carry on. Freud really interpreted our human mind in funny ways, sometimes in ugly ways, in a lot of crazy ways, maybe psychological, could be sexual thing. And really, sometimes you say, this is really terrible. And when you think about the recesses and the things that sometimes you see about what Freud really is saying. So I'm saying here, Dostoevsky, I think, was more refined, I would say, this is my feeling, I would say Dostoevsky really was more refined and really nicer to me than Freud himself, in the ways in which he, gave us this strong picture about how the human mind operates through, of course, through the workings of, Raskolnikov, the main character here, Raskolnikov, our main hero. Yeah.
Dostoevsky always succeeded in describing the human psychology, and actually he's my favorite writer. I read 5 novels or 6 novels written by him, and they are all nice.
Really?
Yes. Yes,
That's
he's
lovely.
my favorite writer.
Absolutely.
Yes, and I read Crime and Punishment.
Yeah. Have you read that in Arabic or in English? I don't mind whether Arabic or English, but
I read it in
Russian.
Yes, in Russian, exactly.
You read them in Russian?
No, I don't know Russian.
Yeah. Well,
I read it in Arabic.
In Arabic.
Yes, but I have I have the book in English, and I will read it again in English.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem. Because you see, sometimes some Arabic translations, I must say to you honestly, some Arabic translations are really bad not because of the exact translation, but because it's really an abridgment. It's abridgment, which is like summary. It's not really the full text. That's why.
Yes,
it's
yes,
not,
Doctor.
Yeah, you've noticed
I've
that?
seen I've seen terrible translations. And
Yeah,
I've seen
I'm
good
saying
translations.
normally I've seen this many times in Arabic translations of all these texts from European languages, English or Shakespeare or any foreign language. Our Arab translators are bad because they don't really stick to the text. They give brief summary. They don't translate. They really do terrible business to the job of translation. They are bad translators because, as I'm saying, they are not honest. I mean, at least the things that I have read, the things that I have seen, it's really horrible translation because they are not really faithful to the original text. So that's why I'm saying here, it's better to read it, like, for example, I know Dostoevsky through English. I don't know Russian. I've never read it in Russian, and I don't know Russian. So, but I mean, the exact translation of Dostoevsky, for example, or, other people, and, translations from French or German literature or French literature or Spanish literature into English, you could see the translation is really absolutely perfect in terms of honesty. I mean, being honest and faithful to the text. Yes. And this is the problem, really. And again, here to go back to the question of translation and world literature. So that's why
Doctor,
I don't mind. Yeah.
A translator who's named Sami Ad-Durubi translates.
Yeah, I know him. He's from Homs, from my own town, and he's terrible.
No, he's a good translator.
Well, I don't know. I think he's terrible. But anyway,
He's
I don't.
like, if you compare the other translations, he's the best one. Like the others are terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially the Egyptian translators are horrible. I hate them because they don't translate. They are really wicked, and they do it only for money, and it's a shame. When you only do things for money, it's a shame, really. Yeah, could be Samit Drubi. Yeah, I know him, and I know the Drubi family. Many of them are my friends. But anyway, yeah, I mean the idea really is true. Yes. So what I'm saying here, Dostoevsky. I'm saying Dostoevsky is, or I should say, was really a huge influence on European literature at all. He was the first founder of what we call the psychological novel. He was the real founder of, psychoanalytical criticism. Psychoanalytical criticism, because Dostoevsky really gave us this through this novel, and we shall see this. I teach this novel mainly because of this, because of its huge effect on psychoanalytical criticism. And psychoanalysis in literary criticism and in literary theory is a huge trend, a huge school of criticism. And many people and many writers, of course, after Freud, we have Lacan, Jacques Lacan, and Carl Jung and Lacan. Lately, Lacan and these people were mostly French. Jung, maybe Gustav Jung was Austrian or Swiss, but Jacques Lacan and people after him who picked, especially this great Hungarian critic, writer, professor, Julia Kristeva. Julia Kristeva really used a lot of this, and she's still with us. She's still really a living professor working, I think, at Harvard University or somewhere in California. I'm not sure where, because she moved in from so many places. But originally she was really in Paris for many years, and she was a huge, if you like, result of Lacan and what's his name? I say Gustav Jung. Of course, when they based all their psychology on Freud, and Freud, how he divided the self into the ego and the superego, and then the ego, and then the id. This, I think I mentioned this to you before in my previous classes. I don't know, those of you who did with me, maybe I don't know, I think I did in some of my courses. I mentioned this. I can't remember where exactly, but I did. Anyway, so that's why, when you read this first introduction that I gave you, I don't know if you, some of you asked me, how many pages, doctor, we are going to read in this novel? I said, we hope to do 160 pages. So I will tell you exactly, after these 3 weeks, I will tell you exactly where we stop. I'm not really a bad guy to ask you about the whole novel. I would love to, I really would love to ask you to read the whole thing. Please read the whole thing, because it's really a lovely novel. And it's an amazing novel. Again, I have not mentioned the other big part of the novel, which is really Sonia, because this novel is about Raskolnikov and Sonia. Really, Sonia here, to me, later on I will show you, Sonia is an absolutely decent woman. When in the novel, she was seen and pictured by society as a bad woman, and we will discuss this later on in details about this question, whether Sonia, was whatever she was. Of course, when we read the novel, I will show you, and exactly I will try to analyze with you the whole idea. Now, here I gave you a little introduction and the context I say about the novel. It's really very brief. Now, if you check the net and the references, you will find hundreds and hundreds of books and articles written in Dostoevsky. You know, there's no way you can really measure and see how many things really, written on him. So here I'm saying here, notice I gave brief note, as you can see in my I will share with you for a few minutes, and then just to show you where I am. Yeah, here, this is the beginning of the novel. As you can see, the novel was published 1866. And really, this translation, I say here, I like this translation by this, you know, here, Constance Garnett, who's really an amazing, I think, is a great translator. Notice here, I say, Dostoevsky is renowned as one of the world's greatest novelists and literary psychoanalysts or psychologists. You see? Really, I say this and I believe it. He's absolutely, I think he is, right? His works grapple with deep political, social, and religious issues while delving into the often tortured psychology of characters whose lives are shaped by these issues. You see? So really, this is my, if you like, key sentence here. Really, this is my main, really topic sentence throughout my analysis of this novel. Really, this is the idea: social, political, and religious. Really, social, political, and religious. These are the main, absolutely heavy questions which are terribly discussed in this novel. And as I said here, as you can see, I'm saying the tortured psychology, you know, how Raskolnikov, we shall see, how Raskolnikov really felt and went through all these, if you like, tortures throughout his life, as we shall see. Again, I'm saying these characters or these lives or these people are, you know, really made or shaped by these issues. Absolutely. Again, here I give a little brief, you know, biographical stuff. Born in Moscow, 1821, the son of a doctor. He was educated first at home and so on. You know, you can read this. Really, I'm not going to read that, all of it, but I want to maybe move to the next. I say Dostoevsky became active in socialist circles, largely because of his opposition to the institution of serfdom. Again, I think this is the idea, because this is one of the heavy questions here about the question of poverty. Because this novel, one of the heavy questions in this novel, really, as we shall see, I will show you later, and I will ask you later to give another title for this novel, but not today, maybe next time. I will ask you to give me another title for this novel, you know, instead of Crime and Punishment. What title would you give? I will give you that. I will ask you this question, and keep it in mind when you read about 3, 4, or 5 chapters. After reading 3, 4, 5 chapters, I wanted to give me really another title, or a subtitle here, which is really a huge, important issue here later, which is to do, I'm saying here, with the question of, you know, one of the social ills of serfdom. As you can see here, serf and serfdom, really, it's to do with really absolutely horrible, if you like, the domineering, terrible, even worse, you know, the well, it's economical, social, political system which really totally controls and enslaves really people, which is I think maybe these days, you know, thank God we don't have this anymore in any place in the world. Maybe there are still parts of it in some places in Africa or in some places, I don't know where, but it could be. But really, it's worse. It's like slavery. It's absolute slavery. So this issue here was one of the reasons why socialism emerged in Russia at that time, of course, if you like, right? So as you can see here, I give also some of the biographical stuff about his activities in socialism, as being a socialist activist at some time, and he was, to some extent, he was arrested for some time. As you can see, notice after spending 8 months in prison, he was sentenced to death for membership in the group, and led, of course, with other members of the group to be shot, But the execution turned out to be a mere show, meant to punish the prisoners psychologically, you see? So this is it. Part of the effect of Dostoevsky's own really knowledge and work and his novel here on psychology, because he himself in real life experienced this, because here you can see here that is like a mock or a show execution, when you are sent to be executed or shot dead, either by hanging or by shooting at you in bullets, and it was like a sham or a show execution. So you can see here, he say it was a punishment, it was a terrible psychological punishment, and I think that's why here, in a way, Dostoevsky got all these ideas of psychoanalytical effects from him through his own real experience. Again, I say Dostoevsky then spent 4 years at a labor camp in Siberia, because his main hero in the novel here, really Raskolnikov, was at the end, when he confessed about his crime, he was sent to Siberia. So the same maybe biographical references, or I should say autobiographical references here. You can say maybe there are a lot of things reflected in this novel. Of course, Dostoevsky was not a criminal. Dostoevsky did not kill, and so on. Dostoevsky, yes, went through some problems because of his own social political activities, and it was maybe a harsh thing to sentence him to 4 years in prison only for political reasons or for social reasons, which is his own social or political activity. And that's why here you can see the effect of Siberian prison or upon prisoners, generally prisoners in Russia these days. Even now, people say you will be sent to Siberia, which is the very, very north of Russia, which is absolutely frozen, cold, frozen, and very harsh and very hard. And that's why, we see this reflected in the effect that, if you like, the psychological, really, if you like, the psychological healment that Raskolnikov went through in this novel, as I said, taken really away from Dostoevsky's own real life. Notice here, I say immediately resigned his position as sub-lieutenant in exchange for the much less stable life of a fiction writer. And notice here, his first book was called Poor Folk, was published to critical acclaim in 1846. Even you can see at this time, even Marx and Engels were not really, they were not still really, if you like, theorizing about Marxism. Again, I can say Dostoevsky really gave us heavy questions to do with Marxism even. I'm saying here not just Freud, but also really Marxism, because his novel is full of Marxist ideas, about really socialist ideas, about to really help the poor, because you shall see that Raskolnikov killed a rich woman a horrible, terrible, rich woman to give to the poor. It's not him. He wanted to take her money to give to the poor, which is really very funny and maybe very strange to do that, you know? I mean, who would do that in his, if you like, in a way you can say, in his really sensible mind, you know, to kill someone and to take some of his or her money to give to the poor, which is really amazing. You know, I think this is really amazing. And that's why I'm saying here that Dostoevsky really laid the first seeds of Marxism as well, not just psychoanalytical criticism or psychoanalysis and dreaming and interpretations of dreams and all this carry on about human psychology, but also really about socialism, absolutely real, absolute socialism, or later on, what was later on called communism, as fully developed by Karl Marx and his friend Friedrich Engels, you know? So you can see here the novel, as you can see here, you know, the novel I'm saying, it's called Poor Folk, really. You know, it's to do really with the real, absolutely the real poor, you know, how poverty really stricken people to death. And I think this novel here, we shall see the examples. One big example in the novel, and it's the Marmeladov, as I will show you. Marmeladov is the example. His family, especially his wife and her kids, and Sonia. Remember, Sonia was forced. Sonia, the decent, lovely young lady who was forced to go out and sell her body to get money for her kids. I mean, for her step. Notice again, this is the huge sacrifice. And this is here I go back to the Christian question or religious question, to sacrifice. Because really here in this novel, we see all these issues, the sacrifice. Again, as I said to you before, my key sentence, when I said social, political, social, and religious. And here Sonia's sacrifice is really very much reminiscent, if you like, and many people thought that this is, you know, some kind of reflection to very Christian kind of, you know, sacrifice, to sacrifice your own self for the other. Sonia did that. Not just, I'm saying here, we have the issue of religious sacrifice, the Christian sacrifice, or generally religious sacrifice, familial sacrifice, because Sonia, the young lady, the 18 years old, even younger than that, who was pushed away by her stepmother to go out and sell her body to get money for the kids, for her own, because they are starving to death. They are very poor. And this is the question here. I'm talking about poverty and the question of really the rich and the poor and all that. You know, these are all the heavy questions here I'm talking about really here. Of course, yeah, as you can see, I'm giving you really all these questions together today as in a brief summary of what I'm going to discuss in details with you when we read some of the sections of the novel. Again, I say here the idea of the effect of the prison was really very much, you know, important here. Notice here, I say Raskolnikov's time in Siberian prison, described in the epilogue of Crime and Punishment, is based on Dostoevsky's own experiences at a similar prison. And I think here I should underline this. I don't know how I missed it. Yeah. So really here you can see the reflection. I'm saying the autobiographical, if you like, issues being seen in the novel. Now, notice here I'm saying during his time in prison, Dostoevsky suffered the first of many epileptic seizures. Again, this is another important question, which is to do with psychological diseases. which is here, as you can see, epilepsy. Epilepsy, or as you can see, epileptic seizures. You know epilepsy? Hello, girls, boys? Hello, my people, where are you?
Yes, doctor.
Yeah. Do you know what epilepsy or epileptic?
Is it Sarah?
Yes. Thank you. As-Sara'. Yes. Allahumma jina ya Rabb al-afu. Now, yeah, in a way, yes, this question here is very, very important because in this novel here we see, was really Raskolnikov in a way epileptic in the same way that Dostoevsky himself had some epileptic problems? And I think this question of epilepsy, and maybe later on it's maybe driven towards something which we may call like schizophrenia, you know, schizophrenia, which is similar to as-Sara', which is, you know, we say sometimes schizophrenic, when you feel that you have two personalities or three personalities. Again, in Arabic we say al-infisam al-shakhsiyya, that is sometimes you feel something and maybe next hour or next day or something you behave differently. And this is in real life. Yes, we have many epileptic or schizophrenic real life situations. And these are parts of what we say psychological diseases. And they are diseases. They are not something, you know, we should be ashamed of. When you have a disease, you can't really be ashamed of your disease if you have a certain, you know, illness or something. So Dostoevsky, for some effects, really, he had this in real life. You know, he had some, and notice here I say seizures, meaning fits. Fits. Sometimes, you know, as we say in Arabic, nawba. Nawba means sometimes you have it, sometimes you don't have it. You know, very rarely you have it. But when you have it, you are really in a real problem. So here we can say this question about it, you know, about psychology here again is connected.
Doctor,
Again, I say, yeah.
he has a book he called The Devil.
The Devil.
The Devil. The Devil.
The Devil.
Yes, he talked about schizophrenia in that book, and I read it. It is nice. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, The Devil. Yes, yeah. I must admit, really, I have not read many of his novels, really. 2 or 3 of his novels, I must admit. But when I studied and read the Crime and Punishment, I couldn't, you know, I couldn't really stop admiring him and reading more. Yeah. I mean, later I will mention some of the novels here, I think. I don't know if I did. Yeah. I will show you here the examples that I have read. They are really, really amazing examples. I mentioned this here in a minute. Now, I'm saying here that this question of, you know, psychological, you know, problem really affected his mind and work and writing and so on. He was hugely, unbelievably intelligent man, you know, in every respect. So that's why I'm saying here, in prison also, we say he changed, notice, rejecting the radical socialist positions that had led to his arrest in favor of conservative concern for traditional values. His dismissal of leftist political thought is evident in Crime and Punishment. For example, when, you know, for example, remember he became a little bit softer because we can say, we notice here the idea, we say leftist means very, very conservative socialist. You know, he abandoned this position and to became a little bit acceptable, sort of more like, you know, as we say here, traditional values. You notice here, again, I say Raskolnikov's crime is motivated in part by his theories about society. Again, I think this is a crazy reason why he committed the crime, because he has this certain really funny theory about the Superman. And again, this is really another issue I will discuss with you here about Raskolnikov as the Superman. And the Superman here later on, I will compare this to Shakespeare's Hamlet. Later on, I will show you, and I will really ask you to watch the play Hamlet. I will send you the link, and I want you to watch the play Hamlet by Shakespeare. If you have not done that before, I want you to see it and to compare Hamlet's own psychology and what Shakespeare really was saying there in Hamlet, and how you can see Hamlet is reflected in Raskolnikov's crazy mind. You know, Raskolnikov had this theory of the Superman as being the man who wanted to correct society. He was looking at society who thinks that society is terrible and he needs to correct it. Like somebody who thinks that he is the super person who knows everything, who is very valuable, blah, 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 and who needs to teach people to correct everything. And I think he did this.
Doctor, he thought about himself. He sees himself as an extraordinary man, and like he wanted to correct society. So he convinced himself that he can commit a crime to
yeah, for the sake of society, or for the sake of getting rid, or you know, saying that if society will be better, will do much better if society will get rid of this old, terrible, horrible woman, the pawnbroker, as I will show you. Yeah, yes. Again, you know, who gave him this right? Who asked him to do this? You know, this is done only by God. You know, nobody ordained him. And notice here, I use the word ordain. You know, to be ordained, like sent from heaven to correct society. He's not really given, if you like, permission or, you know, authority from heaven to correct society. And he killed this woman by saying that by killing her, I'll take her money and give to the poor. As if to say, you know, he has the right as a Superman to, you know, correct society by doing this, by killing this ugly woman because she was taking people's money, blah, 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 blah. Again, who asked you, who ordained you to do that? Who gave you the power? Who empowered you? Who authorized you? You know, this is the idea. You know, your own crazy idea about being the Superman, the super teacher that you teach people how and what to behave. Well, you know, again, I think this a huge question later on we shall see. Do we accept his crime? Do we forgive him? Do we understand his crime when he killed this woman because this woman is a terrible woman? Is a hard woman, is an ugly woman, okay, but who would accept, who would, you know, agree, you know, to killing a woman only because she's a bad woman? You know, this is a huge question. Raskolnikov killed this woman because, you know, he really was absolutely convinced. By killing her, he said, I will clean society. I will cleanse, even purify, you know, society. You know, this is amazing, really, issue here. And I think I think this is here, I say Raskolnikov's crime is motivated, I say in part, somehow in part by his crazy theories about the Superman in society. Again, Libiznatnikov, again, whose name is derived from the Russian word like fawning, is obsessed with the so-called new philosophies that raged through St. Petersburg during the time that Raskolnikov was writing the novel. As we shall see here, we have later on, we have so many names. Maybe you will not be happy with me because these names are difficult to pronounce or to even to write. Libiznatnikov, as I said, he's one of those, horrible people who, if you like, who believed in such philosophies or these new philosophies at that time. And I think, Dostoevsky made fun of him in many ways in the novel. Again, Luzhin, a mid-level government official, also, again, here we can say, he is continually afraid of being exposed by nihilists. Again, notice here the question of nihilism. You know nihilist or nihilism? Amani? Boys, girls, where are you, my boys and girls? Amani, you are here. Wait. Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Doctor.
What's nihilism or nihilist?
Well, I don't have an idea.
Sorry, I don't want to embarrass you, but I just want to tease you.
That's okay.
I just want to tease you and in case you're asleep, in case you're still asleep, I want to tease you. Yeah.
With the crazy names? No. I'm not asleep.
Yeah. Anyone knows what nihilism and the way we pronounce it? As you can see, my word. Can you see it here? Can you see it? If you want me to enlarge this a little bit, yeah, look at the word nihilists, being exposed as nihilist, and we say nihilist. We don't say nihilist, right? And there's a philosophy called nihilism.
Doctor?
Yeah? Who's this?
It's Fatma. I think it's the belief that life is meaningless.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Meaningless and not just meaningless. Pointless, and yeah, really means like absolute, pointless, endless, nothingness. Really, this nothingness, which is to do with really the absurdity. You know the word absurd and absurdity?
Yes.
You know absurd?
Yes.
Yeah. In Arabic, anybody can tell me what nihilism in Arabic?
العدمية.
العدمية.
Yeah, absolutely. Al-Adamiyya, which is really amazing, Sometimes people, I don't know, people sometimes they say they believe in this nihilism, and Luzhin here, as a funny character in the novel we shall see, Luzhin really was a terrible character. Later on we shall see he wanted to marry Raskolnikov's sister, and Raskolnikov was crazy and mad with his mother and sister to accept to marry Luzhin, because Luzhin is an ugly, horrible, materialistic man who really does not love her, who is really abusing her, and who is blah, 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 blah. And he was terrified about, if you like, here you can see the question about afraid of being exposed by nihilists or by this, these new concepts and things in reality. And I think this is really an amazing thing we can see here in the novel. Yeah.
Doctor, his true self, his true character will appear in the novel, and he will not be the sister.
Oh yeah, of course, I know. Yeah, definitely, yeah. Because later on when I give you the novel in details, yeah, Login will never be able to marry her because, yeah, I will talk about that. But I'm saying originally he was engaged to her, and they were.
Doctor.
Yeah.
Forgive me, I'm so excited. I love this novel. I just want to talk.
No problem. Please, you can talk anytime. Remember, this is I really would love that to have all of you to talk and, to turn the whole lecture to discussions. I mean, I don't mind really. Really, if you want to, any one of you would like to give me things, I would welcome that. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, here I give more, a little bit of biographical stuff here about, again, the question of another healthy thing about diseases, social problems like consumption, because Sonia's stepmother, Marmeladov's wife, who died of consumption, and the word, the disease, it's a disease really. In the old days, people used to die or through consumption, and really the word here, which is sometimes it's called tuberculosis, which is when Arabic we say asil, which is really again one of the terrible questions here about people used to die in this, and I think this is also was reflected in the novel in some way or another. So I'm saying here that he spent much of the 1860s in Western Europe experiencing the culture that was slowly invading Russia, and struggled with poverty, epilepsy, and an addiction to gambling. Wow. Here I have two main big questions again in this novel: addiction, which is to alcoholism, and, as I say, to gambling. Again, really, these are two huge issues, social issues, which really were terribly exposed and discussed and criticized and psychoanalyzed in this novel. Marmeladov, Sonia's father, he drove again his own daughter, the only daughter that he has, his wife, the kids that his wife has, they are her kids from previous marriage. Marmeladov has this only daughter, Sonia, and she was driven by her father, who was a drunkard, terrible drunkard father, who really forced his daughter to go out to sell her body for him and for her own step sisters and brothers, and for her stepmother. Again, which is really, it's a huge sacrifice. Really here, a huge sacrifice. And there are many, many people and many critics and many writers who really compared Sonia to a she-Christ, if you like, to a she-Christ. Maybe this is too much to say, but there are people who, who maybe said this or wanted to say this, that Sonia was not a bad woman. Sonia was not a prostitute, as she was giving her body to people for money. And really, this is a big issue. Later on, we shall discuss. And it's really a terrible issue, and really a problematic issue, and really, really full of problem. And people will disagree, and maybe will be absolutely unhappy to talk about this or even to discuss this, because it's such a problematic question. So I'm not really worried about it so much, But this is sometimes, you know, society is full of problems and society is full of diseases anywhere, anytime. And we should not be ashamed of ourselves. You know, we live in complicated, horrible, you know, if you like, so many, if you like, difficult social circumstances, blah, 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 blah. People sometimes are forced to do things. And here really Dostoevsky is giving us all these pictures, all these really windows into how far people can go into maybe problems or how to solve their problems or whatever. And really he is doing this through many, I said, really sometimes, you know, very effective, absolutely influential, absolutely touchy, absolutely emotional, could be very personal, you know, and so on. So we can't really say, we can't really, you know, hate or dislike Dostoevsky because he did this. Remember, Dostoevsky is writing a novel. Remember, this is literature. It is a novel. It's not reality. It is literature. It's fiction. And in fiction, people can do, you know, crazy things. Nobody can tell them, why do you did this? Because they say, well, I have experienced something like that in reality. Yeah, because we have many people like Sonia. We have so many people like Sonia. We have so many people. You have so many people like her everywhere in the world, everywhere in the world. We have so many people like her father, drunkards who spend their life, you know, crazy, and they die and they kill themselves through drink. And later on we shall see that Marmeladov was killed through drink, and so on. You know, we see so many questions like that. So we should not be, we are maybe ashamed of us, ourselves as people, but what can we do? You know, this is it. People have their own problems, you know, and really this is the idea here. So again here, I say here about, you know, the novel was published, Crime and Punishment, again, notice here, but with the 1866 publication of Crime and Punishment, a long delirious trip through the psyche of tormented murder, his fortunes improved. Again, I want you to really pay attention to this word delirious, and I want to highlight it here now. Delirious. And the word deliria, it is a huge question here to me. I may ask you, you know, in the exam later on about, you know, a topic like this, you know, deliria, for example, deliria, or being Raskolnikov as being delirious, is the main, you know, huge driving force, or driving, if you like, thing which made him what he was, if you like. Because all the time, this word delirious and the way, the question of deliria, he was always under this illusion all the time. All the time he seemed to be dreaming and crazy and not thinking and not with us. He was always flying, you know, above the, if you like, in or whatever, up in the skies or in the clouds, because of his really his psychological thing. Was it really feverish? Was it fever, or was it deliria? Was it psychological deliria, or was it really bodily, you know, deliria or something? I don't know if somebody is sending me messages here in the chat. I don't know.
I think, Doctor, the guilt tormented him after the murder.
Oh yeah, of course. And even before, Hajar, before he was delirious even before.
Yes, yes,
Before even
yes,
committing.
even before.
Even before, he was terribly delirious in many ways, and I will show you that, of course, when we read the novel.
Maybe because he was poor, and he sometimes don't even eat anything during the day, and he lived like by himself in a small apartment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely, definitely. As I said, please, when you see the film, please, anybody, because I sent you that, anybody had the time to look at the first part? Nobody. It's okay, no problem. But please do. Please do, because, yeah, because you can see this, it's to do with so many issues, mainly, as we shall see, it's to do with his own, really, as you say, his terrible poverty and his terrible conditions under which he was living. Again, all these were reflections, really reflections of his terrible life, and you know, poverty, as I say, yeah. So we can see here that Dostoevsky himself got married again, because, as I said, his wife, the first wife, died, and at that time he said to another woman called Anna blah blah blah, who helped him cope with his epilepsy and with depression and gambling problems. Well, you can see here our friend is a terrible man, really. He was, you know, having epilepsy. He was depressed, and he had problems. Not maybe could be like his, you know, Marmeladov character, who was a drinker. Again, you can see here, really, this is, for example, how he showed this in his novel called The Gambler. Again, it's a huge novel, really, here called The Gambler. And I think this is a great novel again. So after Crime and Punishment, you can see here really amazing two texts, which I really loved as well. One called The Idiot, and translated in Arabic, Al-Ablah, and also the brothers Karamazov. Again, it's a huge text. The brothers Karamazov, again, I think was translated into so many languages. Again, as you can see, it was his last novel. And I think this really made us really aware of all of his real philosophy in literature and writing and so on. Here I give a little conclusion. I want to read it for you quickly. Dostoevsky's novels and other writings were major influences in 20th century literature and philosophy. Yes, some people saw the political themes of his novels as present depictions of life under the Soviet regime. Again, I say the existential moment that took shape in the middle of the 20th century looked to him for his descriptions of human beings confronting mortality, despair, and the anxiety of choice. You know, this is what I said to you about, you know, nihilism, and the question of nihilism, which is related to existentialism, you know, related to this emptiness and meaninglessness, you know, emptiness and nothingness and meaninglessness, and all these things really were absolutely clear. As I will show you in our last novel, is an example of what we call really the absurd by Albert Camus. As I will show you, the last novel I'm going to give you in this course by Camus, here I mention him. Writers such as Albert Camus and Jean-Paul Sartre valued Dostoevsky's writing for his profound insights into human dilemmas, which, along with his style, themes, and unforgettable characters, continue to influence writers more than a century after his death. We still, people now, when you, I think, I have seen many people till now, even young or old, young people or old, still quoting Dostoevsky, because he is such an important, I think, quotable man. Jean-Paul Sartre, who was the father of what we call really the existentialist movement, or existentialism, or what we call absurdism. Absurdism. When we say something absurd, you know, we say something weird and crazy. You know, if you have read, maybe some of you maybe have read or heard of in modern drama, I don't know if maybe I mentioned to you before, I don't know, in my introduction to literature too, I maybe mentioned something to do with you know, Samuel Beckett, with his in English, in England, or Irish drama, where he was the huge example of absurdism or existentialism in modern drama, in his play called Waiting for Godot. Have you ever heard of that? Waiting for Godot?
Yes, Doctor.
Yeah. And did Godot come?
No.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this is really the amazing text here that, you know, Waiting for Godot, and the whole, you know, play was talking about that. When are we going to have this man coming, Godot, you know? And really, it's a huge novel, a huge play in terms of ideas, not in terms of volume. Really, it's, I don't know if you have not read it again, really, it's an amazing text by, you may think it's crazy and you may not understand it, but really it's an important text about the whole idea of absurdism and meaninglessness, you know, and this emptiness of things. And as I say, you know, nihilism. Now, the novel here, we see the story really is, as you can see from chapter 1, we still have maybe a few minutes. You know, it begins with this really depiction and description of the whole town of St. Petersburg, or if you like, the place where the Raskolnikov really lives in this city. And you can see a lot of really the scenery and the description and the locale. And I think you see this in the film. The first shots, the first scenery and the shots of the film really describes this, the atmosphere and the scenery of the novel. And here, if I read with you, really, again, please, when you read this novel, read it carefully. And, you know, the description and the images and the language and the really I say the metaphors, and really it's lovely thing to read. I know this is translation, but I think this is a translation. I've seen other translations, but I think this one is to me, I think it's the best. Notice here, chapter 1. On an exceptionally hot evening early in July, a young man came out of the garret in which he lodged in S Place and walked slowly, as though in hesitation, towards K Bridge. I mean, this is only one sentence. And this sentence, only one paragraph, one sentence, and the first sentence, the first paragraph in the novel. And I think it tells me a lot about the novel in a sense. Notice hot July, which is strange to have hot July in Russia. Again, the word garret, in which he lodged. You know, again, to say to lodge, not to live, right? And to say the word again, walking slowly means aimlessly, meaning meaninglessly, or maybe in a nihilistic way, he doesn't know where he really is going, or aimlessly, right? And again, this idea is supported by, say, hesitation. Sorry, what's this? Oh, for God's sake. I'm sorry, girls. Well, my telephone does not stop. Never mind. Oh, come on. Yeah. Sorry. So, yeah, the idea really here, the word hesitation, as we shall see, is to do with the idea of later on deliria and psychoanalysis and psychology and all that. Later on, I will show you that, and we will see this character here who is in hesitation. He is, of course, Chekhov, and this idea is being repeated and repeated and repeated in many times later on. And I will really read with you all this later on in details, as you can see. Really, I want you please to read as many passages and as many really as you can. And as I said to you, really, I want you to read, really, to be honest, I want you to read the whole novel. Really, it's a huge thing. I know you may say, oh, doctor, we are education people. Come on, doctor. Well, some of you are education, yes, but also more than half of you are arts students. So please, I wanted to see that. You know, the real powerful thing here, as sometimes I know that many of you here are art students, and they know what I'm talking about drama and so on. So yeah, so the idea really, I want you to follow with me and to really read as much as you can, as I said in this text. Now, yeah. I think that's it for today, and I want to stop recording now. If you really have any question, please please ask.